And Redick, the league leader in three-point shooting, is off for Milan. Oh, Kendrick Nunn sending Siobhan Shields down and getting the Owaka up on their feet. Some different solutions. Kendrick Nunn sitting Siobhan Shields.
That was former Los Angeles Lakers Kendrick Nunn with the first of his 2 ankle breakers in the game just the other day against Milan. That one, Anthony, especially for you, man. What'd you think?
That's better than any play he ever made as a Laker, by a lot. That's one more play than he ever made as a Laker. He was always hurt. I'm happy to see him healthy. Like, good for him that he's making good on this opportunity.
He is playing really well and doing fantastic. And this is the Basketball Passport Pod, where Anthony, Owen, and I, every Sunday and Thursday, although today it's Friday, of course, we had to push back a day. We talk about things beyond just the NBA world. We talk about European basketball, South American, Asia, everything that's happening with international game and international players. If you want to be a part of it, feel free to send us an email, basketballpassportpod@gmail.com. A little light at the moment. Could use a email or 2. But we will get hopefully to that later on. Today, what we're going to talk about is this new proposed potential NBA-FIBA EuroLeague league that has been sort of discussed. We've got the NBA All-Star Game has announced a new format, which has caused a lot of controversy as expected, but it's one that I actually have experience with because they play this one out in Brazil, and I was in attendance for it earlier this year. And then we will also chat about the ratings and what is causing the NBA TV decline, of course. And then we will be going to Kaunas in Lithuania to talk about my trip out there last year for the EuroLeague Final Four. If you want to get in touch with us, as I said, you can email us at the basketballpassportpod@gmail. Follow Anthony at Lakers Lounge, or excuse me, I still have this annoying cough. On my personal YouTube account at Leo76, or on all the other social medias. How you doing, man? You ready for Christmas?
I'm just about set. My parents will. So my little brother gets into town tomorrow, and then my parents and my other little brother get into town on Sunday. So it's going to be a packed Irwin household. If you want to do any shows whatsoever over the next week, Lee, let me know.
Yeah.
I might need rescuing.
Yeah. Well, let's maybe talk about that, because this time next week I'll actually be in Buenos Aires, Argentina, playing a game on the famed Manu Ginobili court with the La Copita crew. I am very, very excited for that. It's the middle of summer in South America. It's going to be a hot, late night there in the Argentine capital, and I'll finish it off with some steak and red wine, even though I'm a sort of vegetarian, but I'm just scrapping that, even the pretense of that. When I go to Argentina, I'm eating red meat and I'm drinking red wine, and that's all I'm going to be consuming down there.
I'm jealous. I'm going to try making a tri-tip on the sous vide, and I can guarantee you, no matter what I do to that piece of tri-tip or any other piece of meat that I'm going to be cooking over the next week or so, it will not compare to what you're going to be enjoying down there.
One of my favorite follows on Instagram is Gator Boy Chris, who has all these alligators and he feeds them, and they're like pets. It's incredible. And he just throws stuff into their mouth. And that is how I'm going to be.
I like how you got a haircut just to make sure there's no like extra.
Exactly.
There's nothing blocking your face. Like there,
no interference.
The funnel is going to sit perfectly on your face.
Yeah.
For
exactly.
For your trip.
Exactly. Well, first thing I wanted to talk about today is, I'm sure you've seen it because it's been discussed somewhat. And it was basically, it was brought up again at the Emirates Cup final on Tuesday in Las Vegas about this potential collaboration between the NBA and EuroLeague and FIBA to create some sort of expansion league in Europe. And this is what Adam Silver said. He said, "We're not ready to make any public announcements. We haven't made any internal decisions yet, but I do think there continues to be an enormous opportunity to take basketball to another level in Europe." And the reason I wanted to talk about it here specifically was because it also came out that Adam Silver said they'd been in touch with some of the biggest teams in Europe, Real Madrid, Fenerbahce out of Turkey, and Panathinaikos from Greece, about, again, exactly what they're forming, we don't know. But the reason I wanted to bring it up is because those three teams all came out and said, we haven't spoken to anybody. We are not talking about expanding or growing, changing or anything. And I think this is my early sort of summation on that is these teams are some of the biggest teams in Europe and they're stakeholders in EuroLeague. So either A, they want to be like, we're not ready to talk anything unless it's confirmed, or B, it's like, no, we have not spoken to anybody. We are not interested in leaving, what we have right now for taking a chance on another league. But it's a little bit strange because, Adam Silver said they've already made contact with those teams. They're all denying it. And this is also the second time now Adam Silver said something about European basketball. Remember early in the season, he said Jokic and Doncic and somebody else talked to him about, or Giannis, about hosting a game, an NBA preseason game in one of those cities. And Jokic definitely said, I didn't ask him. I didn't say anything about that.
Who's Adam Silver?
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on the NBA potentially trying to expand or create their own league in Europe?
I think it's a really good idea. I think anything that, because you're talking about huge brands in Europe, with the types of teams that you're talking about here. And, the other thing that kind of helps here is, I think there's actually like a pretty good amount of crossover between soccer fans and basketball fans. And, this opportunity to have, some of the NBA's biggest brands go out and compete with some of these crossover brands, right? Real Madrid, is the one that comes most to mind. Like that brand crossover, I think is a really good opportunity. And the other thing too is like there's all this talk about, is the NBA champion supposed to be considered the world champion? Is like, are we being too myopic when we make that distinction? And I think it's, I think the conversation is a little disingenuous at times, but for those who want to see that kind of competition, who want to see an NBA team go and play a EuroLeague team or a FIBA team, like I think there'd be a lot of interest there. This is not an Olympic type of thing where it's all of the best Americans. No, it's the team that won the championship the year prior, going out and playing against top competition from abroad. I don't see how that could possibly be a bad thing.
Yeah, I think it would be great to see because, again, no one is seriously believing that EuroLeague is a better league than the NBA and ever will be. It just won't. It just can't. It just, again, like soccer in America will never overtake European soccer. Like the thrill of playing for the New York Red Bulls versus Juventus or Barcelona or, Milan, you can't ever really compete on that scale. But in terms of like, hey, let's try to have some sort of tournament where, Real Madrid, Fenerbahce, Partizan Belgrade, Olympiacos, all these teams, let's get an NBA team like the Celtics to travel to Belgrade or to Istanbul and see what the atmosphere is like, because the American team, the NBA team should win comfortably, but maybe not comfortably, but they should win the game. But the atmosphere would be incredible because you would actually then get to see the best of Europe taking on the best of America. And again, like it is in the NBA, I mean, home court advantage is huge in the NBA. Mm-hmm. It would be the same in Europe. And it would at least then, I think, show people that the gap is not insurmountable or just like the dream team was in 92, where it's like they're just going out and cruising to 45-point wins. It wouldn't be anything like that. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's something that, again, it's how this would be conceived and how this would actually come together is the biggest challenge, I think. But I do think it could start with this cup that we saw, and this is where Adam Silver was talking about it in Vegas here on Tuesday and the semifinals on Saturday there. Take that to Europe and just sort of take the temperature of the interest and, the teams that maybe don't advance to the final, maybe in the days between the final, they play one of the local teams, Yeah. So then you get, again, a something of a value, because while there wouldn't be necessarily any stakes in that game, pride and egos would absolutely be on the line. you know?
I mean, that's the thing that I've been begging for them to do with the All-Star game. We're going to talk about that here in a
Yeah.
bit, but like even if you don't have like the problem that the NBA keeps running into is that they're trying to make these guys care about games based on implied stakes,
Yeah.
right? And I just don't think the implied stakes to this point have been strong enough. But if you get Giannis playing against Panathinaikos, or if you get Luca playing against Real Madrid, right, his old
Yes.
team, if you
Yes.
get Jokic playing in Serbia,
Yeah.
or any of these, like if you get these guys who, and by the way, like I don't think it's wrong to say that like the biggest issues or the guys who that care the least about the All-Star games, right? Jokic doesn't really care much about it. Luka made a giant farce of it last year. If you can get them in a setting where they have to care about these games, or be embarrassed on what either their actual home soil or in Luka's case, in a place where he has a lot of history,
Yeah.
like that's how you make those things events. And if those guys played in those kinds of settings, those would be the biggest event in that country region of the year. And the NBA being involved with that, I think, is the kind of thing that would be an absolute huge, like, home run out of the park event. And also, like, NBA fans getting to see what their stars, how those stars handled those incredible scenes abroad, would also be, really cool. And maybe some of that passion would make its way to some of the games out here. All of that stuff. Like, there is so much to glean and to learn from that global travel, that global expansion. And the sooner that they can get this stuff underway, the better.
Yeah, and I think you just have to look at what happened in the gold medal game at the Olympics. On paper, Team USA was far better than France. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Yabu Saleh, who's on the Sixers now, was maybe their second or third best player. Good, reliable role player. But that took out superhuman effort by Steph to hit those 4 threes in the last couple of minutes, including the bomb at the end, to see them off. And that sort of atmosphere is, again, what you're going to see, I think, in those big European basketball markets. I mean, especially in Athens and Belgrade and Istanbul. I mean, they're passionate fans that would love to see an NBA team, but they would love even more to become a competitive game down the stretch. And if this league was to somehow happen, or whatever it is that they're trying to concoct here, I think it'd be fantastic. But I just don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And again, the fact that these teams have sort of said we haven't even spoken to anybody.
So much red tape.
Yeah, it tells me that they either haven't got the check yet that they're expecting, or they're just trying to be like, hang on a minute, we're stakeholders in a whole different league here in the Euro League. We don't want to weaken or diminish that in any way. So we'll see. But let's move on to the All-Star game, because obviously it has been a talking point as well this week, largely for the fact that the NBA recently announced the new format where there's going to be 4 teams, 3 of them are NBA teams, and then the 4th team is basically the G League makeup team that's going to compete.
Is it the Rising Stars team?
Right? Yeah. I think that's it. I think I got that one wrong. But anyway, the point is, it's going to be basically 3 games. You're going to play the first 2 up to 40, and then the winner plays off in the final up to 25. And this is actually something that is borrowed, I believe, from the Brazilian model of basketball. I was in Brazil this year for their All-Star game, and this is exactly what happened. They have 4 teams and they compete. And you know what? I don't even know if there was a clock in it. I think it's just you got to score a certain amount of points,
Mm-hmm.
and whenever you do, the game is over. So it's almost like that Elam ending just for the entire game. But it's shorter games, and it's more focused on basically being pickup basketball, where it's like, all right, just get up and back and up and back and try to get to that score as quickly as you can to go on and win. It's been panned by a lot of people already. But where do you stand? Do you even sort of fully grasp exactly how it's going to work, what it is, and how do you think it could work versus what we've seen other experiments they've tried with this, pick your own teams and ELAM endings in the past? None of them, of course, have really stuck.
So have you ever, like, we're nearing that time of year where families get together and they play board games and stuff. Have you, have you ever like sat down and tried to play a new game with your family
Yeah.
and it takes like a half hour to explain it, and by the time you explain it, everybody's just like, all right, screw it, let's just play around, let's see how it goes,
Yeah.
and move on. That's how I feel about this. It's like I don't care about the rules. They're all written out. They seem like way too overly complicated. I don't care. You're gonna go forward with this. Let's just see what it looks like, and then I'll judge it when I see it. I do think, like we were talking about a second ago, the implied stakes and stuff like that, because they're trying to get any possible way to get these guys to care about this game. And I think the way to do it is staring them in the face, but I don't think the NBPA wants anything to do with it. Make it American and international.
Yeah.
What, like, just the international pool is now big enough where I think even without even trying to do it, I bet the makeup of these rosters is going to be 50-50 domestic and international players. Like, just split those guys up, let them go against each other. I could guarantee Jokic would take the game a lot more seriously if that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
I could guarantee Luka would care a lot more about, and then you can make that into this annual tradition that the entire league looks forward to. And like that's how you get these guys to care, is to add those, is to like present implied stakes that they actually care about. This whole like I for a little while it was like, well, you don't want to get picked last, so you had that aspect of it, and maybe you would get like, the guy who got picked last would care more about that game. That didn't wind up working out. Just give me the American side and the international side, and let's like put those teams against each other, make it a regular game, assign 2 coaches to it, and carry it out that way. I know the players are saying just make it East versus West. The East sucks, so like I don't think that's how it should be. There is we have reached a point here where there is enough great basketball being played from American players, and enough great basketball obviously being played by players who are coming to the NBA internationally. Just make the game keep it simple, and let's see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, the argument against that, of course, is that like, well, there's only, you may be throwing in a guy like Mitchich from Charlotte or someone to make up the numbers, because but we've been close in the past. There's been like 9 or 10 players international who've made it to All-Star rosters. But I'm the same. I'm like, let's try that. We've got to get to that point where you've got now international players enough that you can really make a good solid roster. And there's always going to be a few players that miss out. That happens every year anyway, in terms of the snubs and this guy should have made it, that guy should have made it. So that's never going to change. But at least then I definitely feel the international guys would be like, hey man, we want to take down Team America on US soil. And at the same time, I think that's where you might get a LeBron and a Steph and a KD, like it was for the Olympics, of like, hang on a minute, we don't want to lose to the internationals, no way. So that's I think they've done that in the Rising Stars game, and it was,
those guys can't care about the game anyway. But
no, but at least like you may as well try it. Like you're at the point where, again, all the other gimmicks are not working. And I spoke to KD earlier this year, and I posted it this morning, the clip. He goes, listen, Sunday night, All-Star weekend, you've had all these commitments, you've done all this stuff, you've seen your agents, your friends, your family, there was all these other activities. And then on a Sunday night, they expect us to go out and hoop hard for 48 minutes. And he was like, it's tough, man. It's tough. And again, a few people have commented me and said, oh man, he's getting paid 50 million, but it's like, yeah, but you get tired as well. I mean, what summer leagues like, finals are like, All-Star weekends are like. I've been to all those. I can tell you, man, All-Star weekends for everybody by the time, because most people arrive on this, Wednesday or Thursday, and you have activities and events and
Parties.
parties. Yeah, all those things to do. And then you have All-Star Saturday night. By the time Sunday, 8 p.m. comes around, most people are like, let's get this game over with. I want to get out of here, because it's been
Yeah.
it's been a long weekend. And again, I think part of this, a big part, is the NBA has allowed it to get to this point where they don't compete, and they're trying to address it now. But again, like, you can't just throw money at the players and say, hey, we'll give you more money if you play hard. If the players don't try, it doesn't matter what gimmick you add to the game, it's not going to improve. It's not going to get better. And I just appreciated KD's honesty, where he's like, man, it's tough. It's tough to expect us to go out there and play with the intensity of a finals game when we've had all those other activities on the weekend. So, this new format, again, people don't like, people want change, but also don't like change at the same time. It's like,
Yeah.
the All-Star game sucks. Do something about it. Okay, here's a new format. Nah, that sucks too.
No, not that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I understand where Katie, like, I'm not disagreeing with Kevin Durant. I can't, because I don't like, I couldn't imagine by the time Sunday rolls around, like, I haven't been to an All-Star game personally, but I've been to enough summer leagues. It's like, by the time I'm on my last day that I'm there in Vegas, I'm like, people do athletic stuff,
Yeah.
and I think, I get where he's coming from. There was like there was the infamous clip of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander saying, like, well, the one way to get us to care is to pay us for it. And it's like, that one I would have maybe not said out loud while you're wearing a $250,000 fur coat.
Yeah.
But like, I do think, though, that, like, try this before we because I've seen people say, like, oh, just scrap the All-Star game altogether. You can't do that. Try this. Try the American versus international thing, and see what pride does for these guys and trying to care about. And look, if they don't, if they still don't play with any kind of pride in that game, then then you've been told loud and clear by players how they feel about the entire event.
Yeah.
But I do truly believe, because there is, like, you listen to any former players podcast, and the way that they talk about international players, it's like this grand conspiracy that, like, we are, we, the big bad media people, hype up international players, and crap on American ones. And it's like, where that is coming from is a class of basketball player who has seen their power in the sport kind of diminish. And there's no better way to see that play out than in actual competition.
Yeah.
I would love to see that moment where, because you do have, like, right now you have there's a great debate about, like, who the best player in the world is right now between Jokic and Giannis. I want to see those guys, combine their powers and take on, an American side that is kind of looking for what comes next after LeBron James.
Yeah.
And, like, I do kind of think that, like, if that game is actually competitive, that's where traditions are born, right? Like, I don't know if you're a golf guy, but the Ryder Cup, whenever it's played, is must see TV. It's always excellent. And even if it's a blowout, it becomes like, the story becomes the blowout, and it becomes the kind of thing that, like, the side that gets blown out now has to take very seriously for multiple years before they can finally get their chance at redemption. So I would love to see this play out. And I we're talking, we started the show with NBA and FIBA competition. That would be another version of this, but this seems like it's too easy a fix for it not to have been seriously considered to this point. And it makes you wonder what else might be going on there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, imagine Jokic and Luka together as well. I think that's what we would love to see, because they're great buddies. Obviously, not even international teammates. Luka's Slovenian, Jokic Serbian, but they're just great friends. So to see them play together, I think it would be just great to see. And then someone like Bogdanovic, he would make that team probably too. And that Balkan connection there would be great. But also, with LeBron and Steph and KD, those guys obviously toward the end of their career. So it'd be great to see, the young guys like Ja Morant and Anthony Edwards, how they would cope now, with those expectations of like, now you're the face of USA basketball. You guys are the ones who we expect to, take in this new generation, because those guys would compete. I think Ja Morant and Anthony Edwards, knowing that they're like, oh, this is who we're looking forward to in the future. This is their first test, and I think for those young guys, that'd be great. As I say, the older guys, Durant, Steph, KD, they've done their service, and we know where they stand in the in the legend and the lore of basketball around the world. They've gold medals and world championships and Olympics and NBA finals and MVPs. They've done it all. They can go to the clubhouse now and rest. But let's see how the younger players go. I did used to love it when I lived in London. I used to love the Ryder Cup because it was
so
huge.
great.
Yeah, I haven't followed it as much here, but it was huge. The sort of European, connection that would come together for that, because it was exactly that. It was USA versus Europe, and there were real stakes and bragging rights on the line, and it was great. So.
Yeah, it's legitimately one of my favorite sports events of the year, because everybody there so dearly cares about winning that thing. Sergio Garcia made like a good chunk of his reputation, as a golfer in those events. So just and again, like I think this is an opportunity here where the NBA can benefit from that global expansion. Like, you've done everything that you've done to make it this global presence and to, build up the talent pool internationally. Now benefit from it.
Yeah.
This is your tentpole event, and it's like sinking. Let's now put all of that hard work to work for you.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, it is sinking, and you may as well just roll the dice on anything now. And I guess speaking of that, we can move to the next topic, which is everyone's favorite topic: the NBA TV ratings and the reason behind the decline. But I mean, the fall off is drastic. However, this is also only a few months after the NBA announced a $76 billion TV deal.
Yeah.
So it's a very weird conundrum, isn't it? Because it's like, if you're Adam Silver, wouldn't you say, I mean, we just signed the biggest TV
We're
deal.
doing something right.
Yeah. For the next 11 seasons, we've got this TV deal. So there's guaranteed money coming in. As far as viewing habits, I think that's changed across the board for everybody over the last 10 or 15 years. Like I remember when Cobra Kai, like season 2 or 3 came out. I watched the first 2. They were great.
Yeah.
I think it was season 3, Ralph Macchio, the star, he's basically said, hey, it drops this Sunday, binge watch the whole series. Like, not like it used to be like, okay, 10, 12 episodes over, a Sunday night at 8 o'clock. Basically like, hey, they're all here, just consume them all as quickly as you can. So people's viewing habits are drastically different now. And there are so many more options as far as taking our attention. Whether it's streaming video, shows, movies, whatever. And then there's so many other sports, and you can access any sport around the world basically as well from the palm of your hand. So I think there's a natural, decline of some events. And when you have one like the NBA, a bit like baseball, when it's on all the time, I think it's harder to keep the audience, especially the younger audience. So it's certainly a concern. I don't know how they fix it. I don't know how they address it. But, do you have any thoughts as to what could turn it around?
I mean, again, the simple solution is right there. You need to shorten the season, and make those games actually matter a little bit more. It's funny. This has become one of the more disingenuous conversations, like surrounding the sport. Basically, anybody who has any gripe whatsoever with the NBA points to that as the reason that ratings are slipping. Right. I think the same can be said though on the other side of the conversation, where like the people who say like, oh, ratings don't matter. Like, I think you're kind of missing, like they're kind of missing the point there too, because clearly they do. Like, I've in my career, I've spent a lot more time, on the executive side of podcasting and talking to salespeople and all of that stuff. And, so much resources are now going towards NFL shows and NFL content because NFL ratings just keep on climbing. And, to those of us in the industry who are creating content and hoping to get paid for it, we should kind of care about the ratings a little bit, whether or not casual fans or general the general NBA fan populace should care. Probably not, frankly. But I do think though that like the league has to listen to some of these things. They have to listen to some of that noise. Yeah, they did get that TV deal, and Adam Silver secured that, and with it kind of secured his legacy. But a part of his legacy is going to be this kind of slippage in how much the NBA matters to the general sports fan populace. So I think all of it, there's good points that can be made on any side of this. My thing is like we had the kind of indirect and accidental back and forth between LeBron James and JJ Redick about 3-point shooting, right? Where JJ Redick went on a big long rant talking about how homogenization in the offenses isn't nearly as bad as we think it is. LeBron said right before that there are too many bleeping threes being taken. I think one way that you could get fans back to the table here is a lot of the physicality in basketball has been kind of refereed and legislated out of the sport. And one of the reasons that football is so popular, MMA continues to grow, is we like seeing the best athletes in the world push themselves athletically and physically as best as they possibly can, and turning, some of the best athletes in the world into essentially horse shooters. I don't think that's great. Like I want, like there was the conversation about Anthony Edwards at the beginning of the season. I don't think it was great to do shooting 13 threes a game. Like that's not what I want Anthony Edwards doing. I want him dunking on everybody. And like I was talking with I was DMing back and forth with Bomani about this at the time. One of the things, like Victor Wembanyama, part of this is that like he's a great defender and all that stuff too. So it's just some guys being smart. But remember when like Yao Ming and Sean Bradley and other really tall players made it to the NBA, and every NBA player basically took it upon themselves to dunk on that player?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was like a rite of passage where like if Yao was on the court, Kobe went out and tried to dunk on him.
Yeah.
And then if Sean Bradley was on the court, T-Mac would try to, and it was just like it was this scaling Mount Everest that you could possibly do. And nobody has tested Victor Wembanyama,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of that is because like that aspect of the game has been kind of whittled out, and I those are the things that like, the highlight plays nowadays. Highlight is like, man, look at this, drive it, pick and roll that gets kicked out to a player on the wing, and then look at that, a whip around pass to a player wide open in the corner for 3. And it's like that's not really all that exciting.
Yeah.
It's great basketball.
Yeah.
It's the point of offenses in this modern era, but it's not like the most fun to watch if that isn't what you're kind of watching the sport for.
Well,
so I think they could make some tweaks, let guys play defense again, and bring back the physicality of the sport, and I think that would help.
Well, DeAndre Hunter got Victor last night. I think the best anyone's got him on the for the Hawks there. He crammed on him, but then they both got double T's afterwards because Chris Paul snitched to the refs. I don't know if you saw that, man. Like, I love Chris Paul as a player and what he's been able to do. But man, there are times you're just like, why, man? Why are you going to the running to the ref? Call it two.
Every time. Every time.
But then Victor Wembanyama last night, 7 threes on 15 attempts, 42 points, overtime win. So it's like 7 for 15 is not a bad percentage, So if he wants to take him, go for it. But Hunter got him there, and it was a great moment. But that's another part of it is like the taunting texts are way out of control. Like, you can't have that. These players have this expression of emotion, and then be like, no, we can't have that. You're taunting. Like, you've got to be allowed to be like, man, I just mashed one on you, and I'm going to tell you about it. You have to be allowed to do that. Nothing.
I actually saw this happen accidentally. Jaylen Brown dunked on somebody, and then did like the throat cutting thing, and referees didn't catch it in the moment. And then Brown was actually fined for it after the fact.
Yeah.
I think that's how you handle this. If the NBA wants to pretend that they care about, like, sportsmanship and we care about the kids, all that stuff. Okay, fine. Fine them like $500. Make it like a stupid, like, make it a dumb amount of money that's like just enough that they have to like decide if they're going to PayPal or write a check.
Yeah.
And then kind of carry on your business. But again, think of these sports as viewing experiences, right? And the momentum that can happen in a close NBA game, 5 minutes to go. Again, all of these games have some level of otherworldly talent, right? Like the talent pool in the NBA is such that every team has at least one, bona fide star on it. And the last 5 minutes of games, like they have all these timeouts, you have reviews, you have technical fouls on like the most emotional moments of the game. Like the NBA needs to move away from how litigious it's become, and remember that it's an entertainment product. And the best example actually that we've seen of this is in baseball, where baseball is the most tradition forward sport in the country, and everything about it, it's Bob Costa sitting back there in a tweed jacket telling us about America's pastime. It's like, there's that aspect of it, but also, to their credit, baseball kind of realized, hey man, our fan base is literally dying off. We need to make this sport, we need to modernize this sport. So they got rid of the shift. They instituted this pitch clock, and you watch it. Like I remember, I love the Dodgers, and I will stay up like after when baseball and basketball kind of clash in the schedules. I'll stay up and I'll have a Dodgers game on when I'm editing. And it used to be like I would be editing a show and getting ready for bed. It'd be like 1 a.m, and the Dodgers game would be in like the 4th inning, and I'm like, oof, that's a lot to ask. Like I don't know if I could stay up that much longer to watch one of 162. But I now, though, because of how fast the sport moves, how much more fun the sport is when it's on, I'll finish my editing and it'll be in like the 7th inning, and those 7, 8, 9 innings go boom, 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 and I'm out, and it's perfect. And I think, if baseball can take a hard look at itself and its rules and the way that the sport is played and rethink some stuff, I think basketball can do that. Limit the number of threes that count for 3 points over the course of a game. Bring back hand checking and make it harder for small players to impact the sport. Like just make, bring back some of the stuff that, like, some of the stuff we do miss about 90s basketball, and that stuff, like Adam Silver has kind of had his head in the sand, I think, on some of the stuff because of the big money payouts and stuff. But it is clear that the sport needs a bit of a facelift.
I think all of it comes down at the end of the day to money. Like the TV timeouts, they're just not going to get rid of those because it's like, that's how we get paid. But when you're a fan watching, you're like, oh my God, we've had 4 timeouts in the last 40 seconds here. It does suck the energy and the momentum out of the entire experience. But it's funny because, it's 10 years ago where I remember having a conversation because the Warriors were on the rise. And it was like the Splash Bros, Steph and Clay, were just erupting, where it was like every night they seemed to go through a patch where it was just raining threes. But not everyone was doing it. It was only the Warriors, and they were so much fun to watch. And now that has kind of flooded the entire game in the league. And it's like, oh, it's actually not that exciting when, and I've been, I've been to every Hawks game here, and the Hawks shoot a decent amount of threes, but there are times where it's like, I remember when the Celtics played here, within the first 3 minutes, they'd launched like 8 threes or something. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, oh my God, this is, like Al Horford, love Al Horford, and the fact that he's expanded his game by adding a three over the last, 5 6 years is great. But he's just sitting in the corner. Their offense was like just basically dotted around the perimeter. And I was like, okay, someone drive and kick it out. And then if that guy's not open, kick it to someone who is open and just shoot those threes. And you're kind of like, man, this is not fun to watch because they launch so many, over 50 a game, but their percentages are in the 30s. And it's like, you're just playing the numbers of like, get as many up as you can because you're going to hit a few. But
Yeah.
it does make it a tougher viewing experience. But, again, it comes down to money. Everything comes down to money. And if there's something that's paying into the game that's going to take away that financial contribution, I just can't see the league changing their mind. Again, the shortened season, no way. There's just no way the owner's going to sign off on fewer gates. Again, the timeouts are the same. It's like, well, that's how we get ads in and we can make more money.
But it is kind of penny wise, dollar dumb, especially the TV timeouts thing.
Yeah.
I obviously I cover the Lakers, and the Lakers have decided that they don't invest as much as they should into their scouting department and into, things that don't immediately affect the bottom line. And all that's done is eroded what their organization is capable of, and indirectly now cost them money by not going as deep into the playoffs every year as they should. And it's like, make that brief financial sacrifice initially for a greater gain down the road, and it's funny. The same people who say like, oh, ratings don't matter, ratings don't matter, ratings don't matter. If a number comes out that makes the league look good, they'll be like, see, the ratings going good.
Yeah.
It's like clearly these things matter to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Let's just see what we can do to actually get those numbers back up.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I'm surprised they got that big payday,
Well, I think Mark Cuban said, because he sold, right? And Michael Jordan sold, and Wick Grousbeck is looking to sell out of the Boston Celtics too. Mark Cuban, I believe there's an interview out there where he said this last TV deal, they were pretty confident they were going to get a pretty good deal out of. It's the next one after that there's some shroud of concern as far as what that could possibly look like. And it kind of makes some sense.
Wow, can you imagine 11 years from now how things are going to look? It's it's wild. LeBron will still be going around in his last season. He'll be playing with his grandkid, Bronny Jr.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on here. Just quickly, I wanted to mention this one too. Yesterday, Panathinaikos versus Baskonia, and Frenchman Matthias Lessort suffered a nasty injury. Looks like he's going to be out for a few months. He's one of those don't look it up type of injuries. But very well beloved in Europe. Was on the French team, of course, that won the silver medal, a former Partizan Belgrade player, and was involved in just one of those unfortunate, incidental moments there with my man Chima Monecki from Baskonia, and Lessort had to be carried off and stretched off. So sending our best to him and his family and friends. He's already sent out a tweet saying, man, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. And so he's got the right attitude there. So all the best to Matthias and his family and friends. Now, moving on to the destination this week, and I'm going to Lithuania, where I saw Matthias for Partizan Belgrade at the Euro. No, it didn't see him in. It didn't see him in the Final Four. I saw him in Belgrade earlier that year, but this was my first Final Four experience last year in Lithuania, and it was an absolute fantastic event. I mean, so many great things came out of that experience there. First time in Lithuania. Oh my goodness, what a beautiful, beautiful country. I only spent time really in Kaunas and briefly in Vilnius as well, but just a beautiful city, Kaunas, and, the home of Žalgiris, which is Lithuania's biggest team. And unfortunately, Žalgiris didn't make the Final Four. They were in it, but they got swept by Real Madrid in the playoffs 3-0 to not make it there to the Final Four. But and part of me is like, oh, man, is this going to take some of the energy out of the building? But it didn't happen. You had Real Madrid, Monaco, Olympiacos, and Barcelona there. So it was a really, really good event, and the final four teams, and it came down to Real Madrid and Olympiacos in the final. Now, I'm sure you know Sergio Yul. Everyone's sort of
Absolutely.
one of the players that you just wanted to see come to the NBA. He never did. In the final against Olympiacos, Olympiacos led most of this game. Sergio Yul, the all-time leading scorer in Final Fours in EuroLeague history, hadn't hit a basket for the entire game. 7 seconds to go. Real Madrid get the ball, go to Sergio Yul, hits the game winner. I mean, I felt bad for the Olympiacos fans because, they were basically home. They thought they'd won this thing. Sergio Yul goes out, makes one play, one basket, knocks it in, and Real Madrid go on to win the championship. But the city, the atmosphere, the people, one of the perfect destinations to host this sort of event. And again, this is the sort of thing where I would love to see this proposed NBA tournament, the Euro, the NBA Cup, the All-Star Weekend. I'd love to see it go to a city like this because they've got so much basketball passion and history there. And it was just such a fantastic place. They've got their own basketball Hall of Fame. So many fantastic Lithuanian players have been in the league in the past, and even right now we've got a couple there with a big man Jonas, soon to be Laker Valanciunas, out there for the Washington Wizards. But the other thing I wanted to point out, a couple of quick things here. This was the Olympiacos fans, and this is all about the atmosphere, right? This is a couple of hours before the final against Real Madrid out on the streets. That was the fans, man. Like the flares going off. And sometimes you see those things, they do get out of control sometimes. There was no Panathinaikos fans there, so there was no real rival there for Olympiacos, no Partizan Belgrade or anything like that. But that really gets you into the mood for a final. You can feel the fans building up to it, and the energy is there, the emotion is there, the pressure is there. Like people want to see these fans invested. And I think that's just, again, another thing that you often see with European sports, especially football, but also basketball, that creates the environment that you then see in the arenas.
Yeah, I just, that is so, I'm going to play it again. My favorite part of that clip is dude on the far right of it forgetting how to use a drum.
Yeah.
He starts out banging on it, and then he starts holding it above his head and shaking it above his head. No, I again, I just, there are such great opportunities here to open up, domestic NBA fans and basketball fans to what basketball games could look like, what sporting events could look like. And I have gotten some pushback as we've done the show because college football fans would be like, look, we're pretty rowdy. And they're right. Like, I live out here in Texas. Texas A&M is a cult, and UT games here in Austin are incredible, where you have the tailgates, hours and hours and hours before the game.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that we aren't capable of it.
For sure.
But more, more of it. We talk about what can be done to boost ratings and stuff like that. Why isn't there a tailgating culture in basketball games or for basketball games? Why can't we get especially on weekend games? If there's a game down there at Staple, it's a crypto in LA, there's all those parking lots around it. The people in LA anyway. Why isn't tailgating a part of basketball culture? Foodie culture is made its way into the arenas. Let's make it outside too. Let's make these things
Yeah.
events.
With football though, and basketball, I mean, how many games do they play in a season of college football?
Oh yeah, it's only they play like 15 or 16
Yeah.
or something like that.
And so would they play who's Texas's biggest rival? Like who's A&M's biggest rival?
UT.
Right. The Longhorns.
So you have like Longhorns and
Yeah.
Aggies are like,
Right.
yeah, they hate
Would
each
they
other.
play each other every year, once home and once away?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And so again, that's part of it as well, is like the, scarcity makes it more,
Oh, for
you're
sure.
like, you're like, well, because again, the Lakers and the Warriors, we know, play 4 times no matter what. And so it's like, okay, Lakers and the Clippers, the same thing. Like it just doesn't, there's not that scarcity of the events. Whereas, and I also know just from living in America, how fanatical college sports is. When when the Bulldogs are playing, it's like, oh my God, like this is incredible here, and they won the national championship twice, 2 years in a row. And it was easily the biggest event. The Braves won the World Series, and the old bus was zipping around the city as if it had to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
But but again, I think it comes down to that, like that tribal rivalry of like, man, we want to beat these guys because we only play them once or twice a year. So it matters a whole lot more. Bragging rights can last for 12 months, whereas, again, Lakers and Warriors might play, twice within 3 weeks and then play again, later in the season, then again, and then maybe in the playoffs as well. So it's harder to have it when it's like, all right, it's like for me, when I see the Yankees and the Red Sox, they play like 18 times or whatever. I'm like, yeah, but I know it's a big rivalry, but it's like you play so many times that even if you lose 5 times in a row, you're going to play them and have a chance to sort of redeem yourselves against them at some point during the season.
Yeah, I think there's something to it, but I also think that there's something to how much a team hates each other by seeing them so much over the course of a season. Like there was a year there where the Lakers and the Warriors played like a good chunk of their preseason games against each other, and then they obviously played the 4 times over the course of the season. And they might have met up actually in the playoffs that year, so they wound up playing each other like they wound up playing each other almost like 10 times over the course of the year, and Lakers fans, Warriors fans hated each other because of it. We had seen so much of each other, and you could tell that like there was a real kind of understanding on what the other team was trying to do over the course of that thing. And it makes it tough, like from an event standpoint, but I don't know. I just think if you package something and you present that kind of passion, as you see there in the clip that we started the segment with, like that's how you do it. If you show fan, bordering on fanaticism, and that kind of passion, rather than the amount of apathy, like you tune into the beginning of an NBA game now, and it's like every like LA fans have the biggest reputation for this, but every game that you tune into early on, it's like, all right, got to get people back into their seats, or get them into their seats. And it doesn't get till like, midway through the first, almost to the second, that the arena actually looks full. And then by the time you get to that, you get to halftime, and it takes forever to get people back into their seats then too, and we've, the NBA has almost like leaned into the monotony. And I just think that you have to find a way to break that up. You have to find a way to make these things feel more significant than one of 82.
Well, one of the other funny things is San Antonio, in the prime days there of Manu, Tony, and Timmy, that arena used to look full all the time. Look now with Wemby, one of the most freakish athletes we've seen, their games look empty. And that
I was just there.
Yeah, and that's a tough one, because it's like, man, if you've got Wemby, who's a freak and a good player, and they're starting to put things together and they still can't get support, that's a concern there. Anyway, while I was also in CONUS, I wanted to point this out because I always play a couple of pickup games. And after one of the games at this beautiful court just outside their Hall of Fame there was a guy, Gitas, my friend Gitas, who had a shirt that is a maybe my favorite collector's item. See if you can figure it out. I'm here with Gitas, who helped me organise this run today in Lithuania. I noticed the shirt you've got there, Gitas. That must be a collector's item. Where'd you get that one from?
I actually got it from a second-hand shop.
I'm not surprised, yeah. Did you pay for that?
Yes, I did.
How much?
About €5.
€5.
It's a total bargain.
It's a total bargain. Listen, I tell you, there's probably not too many of these that have been printed or that are still out in distribution anyway, are they?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Awesome stuff, man. Thanks, Gitas. You know, after the finals, usually the conference finals and then the finals, people always say, like, you know, they have the shirts ready to go for the winners. What do they do with the team that doesn't win? Well, I think we have our answer there. They sell them in secondhand
It costs
shops.
€5.
Yeah, €5 for the Warriors back-to-back 2016 championship T-shirt there. I mean, that's a great shirt to wear around, you know? Like,
Yeah, that would be like one of the most popular shirts at Summer League, right?
Yeah.
Because Summer League
yeah.
fashion is like
Yeah.
is a whole thing unto itself. That shirt needs to be worn at Summer League games as
Yeah.
often as possible.
Yeah. That's the thing. He was playing in it, and I'm like, I want to get my hands on it, but I also don't want a cheat shirt that a man has sweated all in himself either. I'll try to get it. But it's funny when the Phoenix Suns won made the finals a few years ago, and they got their Western Conference Champions T-shirt. You know, Greg Esposito out there in Phoenix. Does a great job covering the Suns, and I said to him, get me one of those shirts, man. I want to wear it. And I do have it still at home somewhere, the Western Conference Champions, because I'm always like, who wants that? You know, like, because if that's the biggest achievement for the season, it's like, well, you fell one short. And then, of course, if you do go on to win, you're going to get a better T-shirt that says NBA or World Champions on there. So
You know what? You know where they should actually, like, this market would actually work. And I almost feel like I shouldn't give this idea away. The team that won it should be able to buy the shirts that are no longer correct. Right. Like if it's like when the Lakers beat the Celtics in 2010, you know, like I would totally wear a Boston Celtics 2010 NBA championship shirt. I would that would be some amazing trolling.
You know, especially because that was game 7 and it came down to the last minute, basically. So they had to be ready to go. I mean, I guess the Warriors there as well. That was game 7 that went down to. But that's the thing. I wonder when they start printing those shirts out. Do they wait until like game 3 at least and then decide, all right, I think, you know, like last season, the Celtics are up 3-0. It's like, all right, we can go ahead and start printing these. The Mavs aren't coming back. You know,
probably.
So they, you know, because I don't imagine they need a lot of time, and they're not going to start printing the Mavs ones just in case. They're like, listen, let's at least wait 2 games and see what happens, and then you know, you can go from there. But man, if anyone else has got a Warriors 2016 back to back, send it in. I want to wear it.
Yeah, I actually like that I think that's a real merch opportunity, a real merchandise opportunity for the team that beats the other team in a series, especially if you really don't like that team.
Yeah.
Getting to flaunt the fact that team didn't have the accomplishment that's on that shirt, I think would be a really popular shirt. Yeah, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, Celtics 2010 champions. Yeah, that would be awesome, you know. All right, well, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this week. Thanks again to everyone who's joined us. And if you would like to contribute, hit us up, basketballpassportpod@gmail.com. We would love a few emails to discuss on the show, which our next episode, will it be Sunday night, Anthony? Are we going to be back Sunday before the Christmas break here? Or you want to just postpone it for
I think we had said we aren't going to be able to do that one.
Right.
Because
Okay.
family is coming in.
Yeah. Next week, of course, is Christmas. So we won't be there on Wednesday. I'll be in Argentina on Thursday. So you probably won't hear from us here for at least a week or so. We'll try to do one on the Sunday night, maybe after that, the 29th or something, and then back into normal scheduling the following week as we break into the new year. But so plenty of time to get those emails in and see if we can answer them. But I'm really hoping to have some cool stuff from Argentina because I'll be playing a couple of games out there. I'm supposed to be having a tour of the Boca Juniors basketball stadium as well, maybe the football stadium if I can do that. which would be an unreal experience. But until then, we will see you next time.